Hello guys, and welcome back to another video here on my channel. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Usually I just play custom zombies maps and do a few challenges, but today I'm actually going to rank all of the perks, and these are the perks from World at War to Black Ops 4. Because those are the only games that I've played. I've actually never played Cold War. I've thankfully never played Vanguard Zombies because I've heard that it is absolutely horrible. But yeah, enough said, let's just get into it. And we're gonna start off by ranking Quick Revive, which is, it has two effects really. It has an effect if you're playing solo and if you're playing co-op. Obviously on solo this would be a god tier because it is, it lets you revive yourself, but if you're playing co-op, what it does is that it lets you revive your teammates faster, which is not really a perk that you do need, because if you are like an experienced zombies player, you can revive your teammate at any given point. If you got like, let's say, monkey bombs, you can just chuck one of them down and you can easily revive your teammate. If you got a wonder weapon like the Wonderwolf or like one of the bows, you can also easily revive your teammate. So I'm actually not gonna put this in god tier. I'm going to put this in amazing because it truly is amazing, but it's not quite god tier because if you're playing co-op, it's not as good as it is on solo. Now the next perk that I'm going to be ranking is going to be Tombstone Soda, and I think that we all know where this one is going. It's obviously going all the way up in god tier. I'm obviously kidding guys, it's going in cancer because this is one of the worst perks. Like there are just, it's not that bad of a perk. I feel like people are hating on it a little bit too much, but there are just so many other perks that you want ahead of it. If you don't know what Tombstone Soda does, it basically does so if you go down, you have the opportunity to literally kill yourself, and then when you spawn back in the next round, it will spawn a power up of a tombstone, and then when you grab that, you get all your perks back and your weapons. Having said that, if your teammate revives you, yes, you lose your perks, but you still keep all of your weapons, and it's not really that much of an issue to go and grab your perks back, especially if you are on higher rounds. Then you already have like tens of thousands of points, so it's not really that big of a difference to lose all your 4 perks. The perma perk for Tombstone is actually really good, and also the perk jingle. For me, the perk jingle is the best of all the perk jingles, but the perk in itself is just absolutely cancer. Next up we got Speed Cola, and again, just like Quick Revive, this is amazing and not just quite god tier, because I feel like Speed Cola is a perk that you would really want, but it's not a perk that you absolutely need. It lets you reload your gun faster, but there are other perks that you would want ahead of it, especially with the new perks such as Widow's Wine and stuff like that. But it is definitely, like, if you're playing on BO2, Speed Cola is god tier, but with all of these perks, it's not quite up there. Bandolier Bandit, this is actually a little bit difficult to rank. I'm in between decent and trash because one of my big takeaways is that these perks, obviously I have to compare them to the rest of the perks. And for me, this is not a perk that you want to get. Obviously, if you have Perkaholic, it's fine if you get it, but it's not that good. What it does is that it just gives you a little bit more ammo. I'm gonna go with trash, actually, but at the very top of trash, because there are obviously way better perks than this, and it's just not a perk that you're gonna go out of your way to get. Now, Blaze Phase is the worst of the worst. I actually did not know what it did, because I just haven't used it, but apparently it does so when you crouches, it forms like a red-orange circle around you, and then when you uncrouch, you just bolt forward and kill all the zombies in your way. And that's literally all that it does, and obviously it has a recharge, so it's not unlimited. And if that's the only thing that it does, it is the worst perk of all time. Next up is another Bo4 perk, Bloodwolf Bite. I think that's the name of the perk. Gosh, I don't know whether this is trash or cancer. I know like we're starting off with all the bad perks, but I'm just going in the order that they are. I gotta put this one in trash. It's really not a good perk. It basically just spawns in a hillhound named Luna, and she kills the zombies for you, but you don't even get points for the kills that she gets, so it's not really that good of a perk, I would say. If you got points, it would certainly be a better perk, but you just don't, so it's not really that good. Next up is Deadshot Daiquiri, and this is the BO4 version. I'm gonna say that this is decent. It's very decent. It's not a perk that, let's say you get a Perkaholic on BO4, you obviously just get random perks. This is not a perk that you will be that mad to get. Next up is Death Perception, and again, another very bad perk. What it does is that it lets you see zombies through walls, which can be useful at times, but I feel like it's mostly useful for noobs, like players who don't play the game that much, players who don't know the zombie spawns and how to like maneuver around the map. I feel like this perk could be useful for those players, but for experienced players this is just completely useless, and again, you don't want to be wasting a perk slot on this perk, so I have to put it in Cancer as well, but above Blaze Phase, because this can actually be useful. Next up is Double Tap, and I believe this is, this is Double Tap 1.0, which all that does is increase your fire rate, really. And I'm gonna put this in trash as well. It's not really that good of a perk. As I said, it just increases your fire rate, so it's not really that good, but I'm gonna put it in front of Bloodwolf Bite since it still has a use to it. Now next up is Stonecold Stronghold. I'm gonna put that in decent. When you have it in the modifier spot, it actually becomes pretty good. So what it does is that it just forms a blue circle around you, and when you're standing inside of that blue circle, it makes you do even more damage than you're already doing. And I think that in the modifier slot it does something like defensive as well with your health or something like that, so it's definitely not a bad perk. I'm gonna put it in decent. Double Tap 2.0 is definitely up here. I'm gonna put that in amazing as well, and that is because of the fact that it does not work on every single weapon in the game. Obviously most of the wonder weapons it doesn't work on. It doesn't work on the Wonderwaff or the bows, and it also does not work on explosive weapons. So that's a big takeaway, which means that it does not go into God tier, but I could actually put it in front of Speed Cola if I wanted to, but I think, you know what, I think I'm just gonna leave it here. I think these two are pretty even, but you know what, I'm gonna put it in front of Speed Cola, because if I am playing a game, I would rather have Double Tap than Speed Cola. Next up is Dying Wish, and I feel like this is a bit underrated. I really don't want to put this in God tier because I want to stay loyal to the OG perks, but I feel like this is so clutch. I have to put it in God tier, but I think it will be at the very end of God tier whenever I like adjust my list. I know a lot of you guys are gonna be mad at me for putting it all the way in God tier, but it's one of the clutch perks in Bo4 for me. So I have to put it up there in God tier. Next up is Electric Cherry. Now in Bo4, and you guys can see that this is the Bo4 version because we got the other one down here, this is a really good perk, and especially if you have it in the modifier slot, but I do not know, I think I'm gonna put it in good because it's not amazing. If there was a tier between good and amazing named great, I would definitely put it there, but I think this is just good. The standard version of Cherry is decent. It's really not the best perk. It's definitely better than Deadshot, I would say. If I can move it, I cannot. Yes, there we go. It's definitely better than Deadshot. It can actually kill zombies, and there is also a strat on the Juggernog where you have to use Electric Cherry for high rounds. It can also just get you out of like some very sticky situations. Next up we've got Ethereal Razor, and for what I know, what this does is basically it lets you knife like a ton of zombies at once instead of just one zombie, which is just useless really. You don't really need that. So I'm gonna put it in Cancer as well. I'm definitely gonna put it above. I don't know. No, I think it's actually worse than Blaze Phase. I don't know. Maybe I don't know all of the uses for these perks, but I've googled them on the official COD wiki, and I mean Death Perception I already knew, but Blaze Phase and Ethereal Razor I wasn't 100% sure, so I googled them, and from what I found out, they are absolutely the worst of the worst. Now we're moving on to, for me, a very controversial one, and this is Mule Kick, because for me Mule Kick is my favorite perk. The reason why this is one of my favorite perks is I played a lot of the Juggernog ones, and I always pick Mule Kick because it's a perk that you really do need, because obviously you've got the bow that you're going to make, then you need another weapon to kill off the Panzer, which is gonna be preferably a shotgun, and as I said before, there is a strat where you use Electric Cherry to get to high rounds, so you need a third weapon, preferably an AR, to do this strat. So you need 3 weapons, and I just think that Mule Kick is such a great perk. It obviously allows you to carry 3 weapons. So I'm gonna put it in good, and I'm actually gonna put it above Electric Cherry from Bo4. Of course, on some maps the perk is completely useless, and on other maps like the Rising Rock it's very good. And another reason why it's very good on the Rising Rock is because you don't really need double tap, since, I mean, double tap does not affect the bows. So when double tap does not affect the bows, there's really no need to have it on the Rising Rock, since the bows are your primary weapon. Anyways, let's move on to Who's Who. I'm gonna put this one in trash, because what it does is that when you go down, it lets you spawn in, and you have the chance to revive yourself, really. Such a weird perk, very bad perk. I believe it made its first appearance on Die Rise, and I don't know if that's the only map that it's on, but you find it on a lot of custom maps. But Who's Who is just not a good perk, really. I mean, it gets clowned on just like Tombstone does, but I feel like it's a bit better than Tombstone, but it's still not good at all. Vulture Aid is a perk that we've only seen on BO2 and then also on custom maps. I'm gonna put this in decent. It's really good. It lets you first and foremost see through walls, like not like death perception, but it lets you see if there is pack-a-punch or perk machines or whatever. And sometimes when you kill zombies, they also drop like some sort of green juice, which does so when you stand in it, you just become completely invisible to the zombies, so they won't charge you at all. And this can be very helpful if you're doing like an Easter egg or something like that. Next up is Juggernog, which is absolute god tier. This is the best of the best perks, because this obviously makes it so that you have more health and take more hits to go down, which makes it the best perk in the entire game for a lot of people, and for me as well. Next up is a perk that got introduced with BO3, and this is god tier as well, Widow's Wine. What Widow's Wine does is that it replaces your grenades with some sort of like cobweb grenade, so when you get hit by a zombie, it just stuns them. So you basically have 4 hits until you start taking damage. It's a very good perk, and it's a perk that I always go out of my way to buy on BO3. So also god tier for me. And keep in mind, I know that these 3 perks are not in god tier, but if Quick Revive, if this was only the solo version that I had to judge, it would also be in god tier. But I have to judge also the co-op, and that's why it's simply not in god tier. And also double tap, as I said, does not work towards wonder weapons and explosive weapons, so cannot be in god tier. Speed Cola is not a perk that you do need. Again, I know I've talked about it a lot, but the bows, they don't need to reload. Also the staffs on Origins, you know, you don't need Speed Cola for those. Next up is PhD Slider. It's kind of like PhD Flopper, just sliding instead. Obviously it also does so you don't take any explosive damage, which is very useful, since the Helian Salvo is one of the best weapons on BO4. So this is the BO4 one, so I'm going to put it in the very top of good, solely because of the Helian Salvo. If that wasn't in the game, this would be at the bottom of good, but it has to be up here. Secret Sauce. Now if you don't know what this does, it's basically just gives you a random perk. This is literally the definition of decent. Smack bang in the middle, it can either give you a very good perk or a terrible perk. Next up we got Timeslip, which basically just lets like your equipment cool down faster, and the mystery box, Pack-a-Punch, it makes the weapons appear quicker. It also reduces the recharge time of traps. And again, this is a good perk. I'm gonna put it in decent. It's definitely not trash. Like again, it's not a perk that you're gonna go out of your way to get. You would definitely prefer like on BO4 Dying Wish. But I mean, this is BO4, so there is no jug. Quick Revive is essentially useless. There's also no Widow's Wine. There's no double tap, no Speed Cola. So maybe if we're just talking BO4, maybe Timeslip is actually good, but you know, I have to compare them to the rest of the perks, and I'm just gonna put it in at decent. Victorious Tortoise does so if you have your shield out, it basically just protects you from every single angle. So you have your shield in the front, well, if you get hit from the back, it still doesn't deal any damage. Again, it is a decent perk. It's definitely not a bad perk. There is a strategy on classified on BO4, where there is a shield strat, so if you use your shield up there, you're basically invincible and you could go on forever. Now Deadshot Daiquiri, this is trash. It is trash. It's really not a good perk. It's the normal Deadshot Daiquiri, not the one from BO4. Obviously every single BO4 perk is better because you have got the modifier slot, but the normal version of Deadshot Daiquiri is bad. Actually, I just realized this. I put Deadshot before Vulture Aid. I have to change that. By the way, not all of these are in order of what I think is the best one, like if they are within the same tier. Like I don't necessarily think that Tortoise is worse than Stonecold Stronghold or whatever. Next up is PhD Flopper. Again, a really good perk. However, I feel like Slider is better because you obviously slide more than you flop in the game. So this is really only for explosive damage prevention on yourself. So I'm gonna put it in decent, and I'm gonna put it just below Vulture Aid. Stamin Up, which is actually a lot of people's favorite perks, is an amazing perk. It's not God tier for me, but it is an amazing perk. It obviously makes you run way faster. Now, Winner's Wail, basically Widow's Wine, but just like the 0.2 version of it. If Widow's Wine is 1.0, this is 0.2. This is not good. It's not trash, but it's also not decent. I'm gonna put it all the way down here. It's really not that good. It is really good in the modifier slot, but I mean, they could literally just put Widow's Wine in Bo4. That would be so much better. Like, this is such a downgrade from Widow's Wine. It's actually insane. I'm not saying that it is a bad perk, but compared to Widow's Wine, this is absolutely nothing. The last perk is Zombshell, and from what I've read of it, it's basically just a perk that has the chance of exploding a zombie, and then it makes all the zombies around it slower, and the damage that you deal to them is increased. So not really a good perk, actually a trash perk. I'm gonna put it down here in trash. And yeah, this is my final tier list. Make sure to let me know what you agree and disagree with. I could definitely move a couple of them like a little bit up, like God tier. There's only 3 perks up here in God tier. I could definitely put Quick Revive up here as well, but again, I have to take into consideration that this is not only the solo version of Quick Revive. And as I said, these other perks, there are some flaws with them. As I said, Double Tap does not deal damage to explosive weapons and most of the wonder weapons. Speed Cola is not really usable for every single weapons like the bows and the staffs. And Stamin Up is really good, but you want some of these perks before you want to grab Stamin Up. So I feel like God tier are only these 3 perks right here. So that was my tier list ranking. If you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the very next video.